I froze halfway up the steps of Mount Zion Baptist Church, one heel still on the bottom stone, when I heard Naomi's voice slither out from behind the stained glass door. Thank God she didn't come. Just 6 words, whispered with venom and relief, but they cracked something ancient in my chest. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I simply stood there, in my Sunday best, with my gift bag in one hand and my heart in the other, listening to the laughter that followed her words. The bells were still ringing, soft and joyful, like they'd done for every wedding in that church since I was a girl. But now they sounded cruel, clanging over a scene that didn't include me. Max, my son, was just inside that doorway. I could see the shadow of his head through the colored glass, see Naomi's silhouette clinging to his arm like ivy. She said it again, lower this time. I told you. She always ruins things. I didn't want her here. And then, the sound of his low chuckle. A man who had once needed me for every scraped knee and late-night terror, now letting his wife spit me out of the picture like something sour. My fingers tightened around the ribboned handle of the bag I had carried from the car, the one with the handmade quilt I had stayed up late sewing, pinks and creams and blues, stitched with tiny verses from Corinthians. They hadn't expected me. I was supposed to be at home on Fairview Avenue, still waiting on the wedding invitation that never came. But Pastor Ruth had slipped up on the phone last week, mentioned the 3 o'clock ceremony. I hadn't told her I didn't know. I just smiled and circled the date in my calendar like a fool. I looked down at my shoes. New patent leather pumps, size 9 wide, with the sticker still on the sole. $89 at Dillard's. I'd bought them for this very moment. My chest felt tight, my cheeks burning. I turned, slowly, one careful step at a time, as the wind lifted the edge of my navy dress and the church doors creaked open behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Later, someone would send me the cell phone footage, shaky and too loud. It caught her words clear as day. Thank God she didn't come. You could even see Max nod. That night, I scrolled past the grainy footage and just stared at the still, Naomi in white lace, Max in a pale suit, and not 1 inch of space where his mother might have stood. I whispered to no one, $800 for her bridal expenses, and not even a seat, only special people. That's what she'd said. And that's when I knew I wasn't one of them. But I would be, in my own way, on my own terms. Yesterday, I stood outside the church in silence, heart split clean down the center. This morning, I sat on my porch at 1146 Fairview Avenue, wrapped in my old chenille robe, trying to feel like myself again. The house was quiet except for the creak of the porch swing and the rhythm of cicadas in the magnolia tree. I had my journal in my lap, leather-bound, pages soft from years of writing, and I flipped back to the entry from 3 weeks ago, when Max called to say they were still finalizing the date. I had written, "He sounds distracted. Maybe it's just stress. Naomi's probably busy too." I'd even ended it with a heart. I closed the book and stared out over the railing. Across the street, Mr. Langston was mowing his patchy lawn, the same way he'd done every Saturday for decades. A life so ordinary, it made my eyes sting. I picked up my phone to distract myself, and there it was. Max had posted the wedding photos. I clicked through each one with slow dread. Naomi in that same lace dress I'd partly funded, glowing next to her proud parents. Her mother wore a lilac suit, elegant and pressed. Her father beaming. Even her nieces wore matching bows. And my son, my Max, smiled like it was the happiest day of his life. Which it should have been. I just didn't expect to be erased from it. In none of the photos was there an empty seat for me. No placeholder, no mention. Just celebration built over a hollowed-out absence. Me. I looked down at the closet receipt I'd left on the table. $200, even for the dress I never wore. A dusty mauve number with beaded sleeves and a modest neckline. I'd picked it for how it would photograph beside Naomi's bouquet. Back inside, the dress still hung from the back of my bedroom door, tags intact. The matching shoes were lined up underneath like soldiers without orders. My phone buzzed, Pastor Ruth. Saw the photos online, her text said. Call me if you want to talk. But I didn't call. I didn't even know what I'd say. I wasn't ready to explain how I'd shown up uninvited and overheard my own dismissal. I didn't want her pity, not yet. I wanted clarity. I wanted stillness. I wanted my son to look me in the eye and tell me why. Why I gave and gave until I disappeared. I stayed on that porch for an hour, the journal closed in my lap, letting the morning sun warm my skin. I was hollow, yes, but not broken. Not yet. Not completely. The porch light was still on when I started peeling sweet potatoes. Habit, I guess. Sunday meant dinner, and dinner meant family, even if no one was coming. The sun slid across the linoleum in warm ribbons, catching the little nicks in the floor I'd been meaning to fix. My kitchen smelled like onions and rosemary. I stirred the pot out of muscle memory, humming the tune to Blessed Assurance under my breath. The air was heavy with butter and disappointment. By 6:15, the roast was done. Candied yams bubbling, collards just right, with a bit of smoked turkey leg. I plated it carefully. One portion for me. One, like I'd always made for Max and Naomi to take home after service. It used to be every Sunday. I'd cook, they'd eat, we'd talk. Naomi always took leftovers. I slid the plates into Tupperware, out of some stubborn corner of my mind that hadn't caught up yet. That part of me still believed this was temporary. That Max might come through the door asking for seconds like he used to. That Naomi would ask me for cornbread tips like she did that first fall. I posted a photo of the spread like always. A quiet little ritual. Dinner's ready, I captioned, followed by a heart and prayer hands. 10 minutes later, Naomi liked it. Just that. No comment, no looks delicious, Mama R, like she used to. Just a tap. A flick of her thumb. It felt more like a taunt than a kindness. I sat down at the table, the one Max used to do his homework on, and stared at the screen. It was easier when they didn't respond at all. I scrolled back through our old texts, months of, what y'all want Sunday? Naomi allergic to shrimp? Got your almond milk, I always asked. I always cooked around them. Always gave. It hit me then, how long it had been since anyone asked what I wanted to eat. In my desk drawer was the ledger I kept, tucked between my Bible and the takeout menus I never used. I flipped it open and ran my finger down the rows. $500 each month since January 2022. Rent paid right to Bank of America. Auto transfer. Never late. 3 years of steady help. 36 months of grace. And still, Naomi had looked at me like an unwanted guest. Still, Max had smiled without me. I pushed the food aside and stood. The dishes could wait. I needed to breathe. The quiet in the house wasn't peaceful anymore. It was proof. Last night, I couldn't sleep. So I pulled out the photo, the one from the day Max brought Naomi to church. April 10th, 2022. New Light Missionary. Right there in the foyer under the stained glass of the resurrection window. Pastor Ruth had just given the benediction, and Max was glowing. You'd think he'd caught the Holy Spirit, the way he grinned with his arms slung around Naomi's shoulder. She'd brought me a bouquet of tulips, pink and yellow. For you, Mama R, she'd said, clear as day, wrapping me in a hug that smelled like vanilla and ambition. I'd felt chosen, seen. In that photo, I'm smiling, with my eyes crinkled and proud, her cheek pressed to mine, tulips held between us like a truce. That was before the little cruelty started. Before the evasion. Before Max began calling less and deferring more. Back then, she called me Mama, called me my second mom. I believed her. I thought we were building something. That night, she helped me pack takeout plates for the church shut-ins. Said she wanted to learn how you keep your greens so tender. I pulled the cornbread out of the oven and told her the secret was patience. Now I know. I was seasoning their future. In the months that followed, I did what women like me always do. I showed love through the bank and the kitchen. I gave her a gift card to Macy's for her graduation. Bought that cream couch they both wanted but couldn't afford. I didn't blink when they asked for help covering the down payment on the used Honda. By Thanksgiving, I had spent $3,400 in little pieces. Target runs, phone bills, cash for unexpected costs, gas cards, grocery money. It wasn't just money. It was belief. That Christmas, I gave her a pearl bracelet, my mother's. She cried when she opened it, called me a blessing. "You're everything mine wasn't," she whispered while Max poured cider. "I thought we were family. I thought love meant showing up with open arms and an open wallet if need be." Pastor Ruth officiated their engagement blessing in March. We stood in a prayer circle, hands joined. Naomi squeezed mine tight. My eyes welled up. Now I realize I was clapping for my own erasure. She knew what she was doing. Even then, she just did it with a smile. The silence in my house felt heavier after dinner. So I sat down at the dining table with my receipts and my grief. And I began to count. Not emotions, dollars. I pulled out my old red file folder, labeled Max and Naomi. I'd kept it tidy over the years, not because I expected anything, but because I believed in order, in care, and maybe, deep down, in proof. I started with the bank statements. My checking account at Bank of America showed a clear, unbroken pattern. $500 sent on the first of every month since January 2022. That was the rent. My name never on the lease. No stake in the apartment. Just the silent benefactor. $18,000. Then there was the food. Grocery runs, cash slips, and Visa gift cards tucked into birthday cards. I estimated $200 a month in meals, snacks, and pantry stocking. Another $7,200. I flipped to the wedding expenses. I'd Zelled Naomi $800 last month. For bridal odds and ends, she'd said. That included the shoes I never saw. The veil that showed up in those photos online. I also had a note scribbled in the corner. Set aside $1,000 wedding gift. Still in my account. Untouched now. Furniture. $1,200 for their living room set last fall. Purchased on my credit. Never reimbursed. Naomi's urgent care visit in March? I paid the $800 copay out of pocket. Max called in a panic. "We can't let her suffer, Mama." I wired it that afternoon. Then the little things. Holiday gifts, restaurant tabs, emergency tire patching, that birthday weekend Airbnb I'd booked for them in 2023. It added up. It all added up. I flipped the page over and did the math 3 times. $33,400. That was the cost of 3 years of unreciprocated love. I stared at the number until it stopped looking real, until it looked like a scar. I pulled out my phone, scrolled absently, and saw it. Naomi had posted a GoFundMe link. "Newlyweds facing rent crisis. Please help us stay afloat after our small, intimate wedding ring folded hands." The description was a performance of vulnerability. Max had commented, "Any little bit helps. Thank you to our chosen family." Chosen. I had become optional. A resource. A backup plan. And yet, they were still reaching for me, only now through strangers. I closed the laptop. It wasn't just betrayal. It was gall. I picked up my pen and started a new page. Things I gave them. I wrote at the top. Then, underneath, first month's rent, Yan 2022 minus $500. Second month's rent minus $500. Wedding shoes minus $120. Naomi's medical bill minus $800. Sectional sofa minus $1,200. I kept writing. Line by line, I turned my love into evidence. Not to punish. Not yet. But to remember what had been taken, and how quiet I had been while it happened. By morning, I needed air. I took the Tupperware from the fridge, packed up the roast and yams, and drove down to the church picnic grounds. July sunlight baked the parking lot, the kind that makes the asphalt glitter and hum. I set up at a familiar table under the oak tree near the playground, same one we used every 4th of July. I laid out plates, sweet tea in the cooler, and waited. Naomi was supposed to meet me at 1 o'clock. She didn't come. At 1:17, I checked my phone. Nothing. At 1:32, I sent a quick text. "Hey, love. I'm here at the park with your plate. You on your way?" No reply. By 2:10, the ice in the tea had melted, sweat rolling down my back. I checked my messages again. There it was. Finally. Just 5 words. "I'm sorry. I can't today." No explanation. No reschedule. I texted Max. Everything okay with Naomi? He responded 6 minutes later. She said you make her anxious, just giving her space. I read the message twice, each word a cold slap. Make her anxious. I sat there on that bench, with the sunlight making halos on the table, flies gathering on the sweet potatoes, and realized this was the shift, the silent step back, the beginning of erasure. No one had warned me I'd been downgraded. I packed the food quietly and walked it down the block to the senior center. Miss Marva and Deacon Ralph were glad for the meal. They asked how Max was. I smiled and said, "He's busy, baby, that's all." But the truth crawled behind my ribs. That night, I scrolled through Naomi's page and saw it. She'd posted a picture of herself at a brunch spot, sipping a mimosa, laughing with two women I didn't recognize. "Self-care Sunday," she wrote. Same day, same hour. I almost commented. I almost said, "I was waiting for you," but I didn't. I clicked the screen off and sat in my dark kitchen with a paper plate of leftovers and too much quiet. Deacon, Janice called the next morning. "I saw you sitting there yesterday," she said softly. "You okay?" "I'm good," I lied. She paused, then added, "I saw you waitin'. I just wanted you to know I did." And that one sentence, that witness, nearly undid me. I wasn't imagining things. I was being erased. And now I knew where it had begun. 2 days later, I was in my home office, sorting mail, and wiping down the dusty edges of my laptop when the email came through. Subject line, lease cosign, just a wedding gift smile. It was from Naomi. The smiley face was a dagger. I opened the PDF. A lease agreement for a 2-bedroom luxury apartment on Carey Street. $1,800 a month. Hardwood floors. Rooftop garden. Concierge. Fancy. Too fancy. The email body was breezy. "Hi, Mama R. We're so excited to start this next chapter. We found our dream place and just need a quick signature to lock it in. No biggie. It's mostly for paperwork purposes. Promise we won't let it burden you. You're the reason we're even close to affording this. Love you. 2 hearts. No, dear. No. Would you be willing? No warning. Just assumption." I stared at the screen while the ceiling fan whirred above me. My tea had gone cold. Co-signing meant if they missed a payment, and they would, I'd be responsible. If they left early, I'd cover the difference. If they defaulted, my credit would carry the scar. I read the document slowly, every clause like a landmine. Max hadn't even called. This wasn't a conversation. This was a move, a manipulation. I printed the lease and laid it next to my calculator, the ink still warm. The smell of it, like plastic and pressure, filled the room. Then I called Bernice. My cousin's voice came through sharp and steady, just like always. "You better not sign a damn thing," she said before I'd even finished explaining. Bernice used to work paralegal down in Norfolk. She didn't sugarcoat. "You sign that lease, you're giving them a license to wreck your peace. It ain't just about rent, it's about control." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I'm just trying to be a good mother," I whispered. "No, baby, you've already been one. They're banking on you being a desperate one." Her words hit harder than I expected. That night, I stared at that unsigned lease on the desk. The pen was right there, silver and smooth, the one Max gave me last Christmas in a gift box that still smelled like fake pine. I didn't pick it up. Instead, I opened my drawer and placed the lease inside, unmarked, untouched. And then I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark with the full weight of what they'd just tried to do. I wasn't co-signing anything. Not anymore. Not with my money. Not with my dignity. The call came while I was waiting in the Walgreens parking lot for a prescription refill. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something in the number, a strange area code, made me answer. "This is Mrs. Richter," I said. "Ma'am, this is Sharon from Greenway Collections. We're following up on a missed payment for the 2020 Ford Escape. You're listed as guarantor on the account. The balance is $9,012. We've left several notices." I didn't hear the rest. My ears rang. The heat inside the car thickened. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Excuse me." I cut in, sharp. "I never signed for any car. There must be a mistake. She paused. The documents list a Renat Richter as co-signer. Your address, your last 4 digits. I didn't sign anything. I repeated, louder now. She gave me the email used for the digital signature. It was Max's. I hung up, heart thudding. Called him right away. He answered like he was out of breath. Hey, Ma, can I call you back? Don't bother, I said. What is this about a car loan with my name on it? Silence. Then, it's just a mix-up. Naomi was going to handle that. I thought you knew. I didn't know anything. And now I'm on the hook for $9,000 I didn't agree to. It's just paperwork, Mom. You've always helped before. What's the big... I ended the call. Right there in the car, with sweat running down my back and my blood pressure climbing, I Googled the fraud alert line for TransUnion. Put a freeze on my credit. Filed a report. The woman on the line, her voice calm and practiced, said, "It's good you caught this early. Happens more than people think, especially with family. Especially with family." That phrase sat bitter in my mouth. I sat there for 10 minutes, holding the phone like it might still burn me. Then I called Bernice again. "You need to lock down everything," she said. "Bank, credit, even your social if they've got it. And you sure as hell better not talk to them till you're in control." The next day, I pulled my file box down from the closet, checked every account, changed every password. Naomi's little winking lease email was still there in my inbox. And now, I knew what it was. Not just a trick, a setup. They were trying to bury me under the weight of their wants. But I'd finally found the shovel. They suggested dinner. Said they wanted to clear the air. It was Max who texted first. "We miss you. Can we meet? Just talk?" Naomi followed up. "Our treat, or yours. We just want peace. Red heart." I knew better, but I agreed. We met at Saffron Garden Bistro, the kind of place with soft jazz and overpriced shrimp. I wore my gray wrap dress and the gold studs Bernice gave me for my 60th. I looked calm, polished. They were 45 minutes late. When they finally arrived, Naomi waltzed in ahead of Max, a third person trailing behind them, a woman about 30, slick hair, thick folder in hand. "This is Mara," Naomi said too brightly. "She works in elder services, just here to advise. Friendly stuff." Max didn't meet my eyes. Mara slid into the booth beside me like we were girlfriends, catching up. "So good to meet you, Ms. Richter. I've helped a lot of families get clarity around things like future care and assisted financial access." I said nothing, just unfolded my napkin. The waitress came. I ordered the catfish special. Naomi asked for wine. Max picked at bread. They talked around me. About stress. About rent increases. About Naomi's health. Max's job anxiety. I listened. I chewed. I kept one hand on my purse, the other near the folder I'd brought but hadn't revealed. Finally, Mara leaned in. "I reviewed the paperwork Naomi sent me. The lease, some banking stuff, a possible POA, and there it was. Power of attorney." I sipped my water and said, "I'm not confused, Ms. Mara." "Oh, of course not." "I didn't mean," Naomi jumped in. "We just think it might be helpful. Less stress on you. We could streamline everything. Like, relieve the burden, you know?" The waitress came with the check. I reached for it before they could blink. $174, tip not included. I signed it carefully. My full name. Clean strokes. As I stood to leave, the hostess caught my sleeve. She handed me a folded napkin, subtle as a prayer. "They were here last week," she whispered. "Talked bad about you before you came." I nodded, slipped it in my purse. Outside, the night air felt like a bath. Cool, honest. I walked to my car, heels clicking on the sidewalk, and didn't look back once. They'd tried to stage a performance, but I wasn't the audience. I was the one who knew the script, and I was already rewriting it. At dawn, I stood on my back porch, in my robe and slippers, shredding the lease, one strip at a time. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind that feels like it should matter. I tore it anyway, piece by piece, into the kitchen trash can. The edges fluttered like defeated wings. When I finished, I made tea. Jasmine. No sugar. My phone buzzed on the windowsill. Naomi. Her text blinked cold and bright. Just sign, Mama. It's not that deep. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I powered the phone off completely and tucked it into the bread box. I needed a moment without technology whispering lies into my ear. Outside, the sky was turning violet, then gold. Richmond in October can be cruel in the mornings, chilly, sharp. But today, I didn't feel it. I opened the cabinet under the sink, pulled out the old tin box labeled House. That's where I kept the key to the file drawer in my bedroom. Inside were things I hadn't looked at in years. Insurance policies, retirement account passwords, the letter my husband wrote me before he passed. I carried the tin to my room and set it on the bed. No more stalling. I pulled everything out, sorted it into piles. Banking, house, retirement. Gave myself permission to take up space on my own comforter. It was the first time I'd seen it not covered in wedding gifts or folded laundry for Max. This wasn't grief work anymore. This was war work. I glanced down at the pen on the nightstand, the same silver pen Max gave me last Christmas in a velvet box. So you'll always be writing blessings, he'd said. I used it to cross his name off the joint account access. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I just moved with steady hands and a calm I didn't know I still possessed. Somewhere between tearing that lease and steeping my tea, I became someone new. Not bitter, just done. The kind of done that comes after years of whispers and wait. The kind of done that ends a cycle. I sat back against the headboard, journal in my lap, and wrote just one line. Today I returned to myself. Not a daughter-in-law, not a checkbook, not a placeholder at a table that never had my name on it. Just Renate. And Renate had a plan. By 11:03 a.m., I was sitting across from Mr. Carter at the BB&T branch on Hull Street. He looked up from the stack of papers between us, brow furrowed the way it always did when something was serious. I'd known him since 2012, back when Max was an undergrad and I first set up the auto transfer for his tuition. Mr. Carter had processed every favor I ever gave that boy. Rent, loans, Naomi, emergencies. Today was different. You're sure, Mrs. Richter? He asked gently, hand resting over the cancellation slips. I've never been more certain, I said. He nodded, picked up his pen, clicked it. Click! The sound felt like a gavel. We started with the monthly rent transfer. Canceled. Then the shared savings account I opened when Max said he was trying to build better habits. I revoked his access. I had to show my ID, answer security questions, sign twice. Then I changed the beneficiary on my pension, removed Max's name from everything with a digit. Finally, I created a new checking account under a new PIN, just for me. No linked cards, no family view access. Would you like to place an alert on your profile, Mr. Carter asked? We can flag any attempts to access your records, even by name. Yes, I said. Red flag it top to bottom. He hesitated a beat. You want to add anyone back on later? I met his eyes. Not unless God himself cosigns. He chuckled, then grew serious again. This is the kind of move people don't usually make unless they're hurt. I am, I said. But I'm also awake. He slid the stamped copies across the desk. Official. Final. I stared down at the ink. My name, clean and unburdened. Then my phone buzzed. WTF, Mom? Max, why are the accounts locked? What is going on? 5 minutes. That's all it took. Like clockwork. They could sense the money slipping. I didn't reply. I just turned my phone off again and placed it face down on the desk. Mr. Carter watched me. I hope you're okay. I will be, I said. Eventually. I've just finally decided who gets to eat from my garden. And it's not the ones tearing up the roots. Outside, the wind picked up, scattering leaves across the sidewalk. I zipped my purse, tucked the folder of stamped slips inside, and shook Mr. Carter's hand firmly. Thank you, I said. He smiled. Good for you, ma'am. For the first time in years, my money was mine. My silence, too. But not for much longer. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into the main branch of the Richmond Public Library, flash drive in my purse, folder under my arm. The air was cool, almost too quiet, the kind of hush that feels like respect. I went straight to the computer lab. Station number 6, my favorite. It faced the window, overlooked the rose bushes in Monroe Park. I logged in with my library card and got to work. First, I opened the folder labeled $33,000 Truth. Inside were scanned receipts, PDF bank statements, screenshots of text messages from Max and Naomi, Venmo transactions, Cash App notes like "for food 2 hearts" and "bless you, Mama R." I documented every dollar, matched the dates to calendar entries and journal logs. I uploaded them all to a new Google Drive folder titled Evidence Richter. It wasn't revenge I wanted, it was record. At 3:10, Marcus, the head librarian, kind, quiet, and always in suspenders, walked past and noticed the spread of documents across my desk. He paused. "Need help backing anything up?" "I'm good. Just organizing things that should have been organized a long time ago." He nodded slowly. "Take your time. You're doing something important." I smiled at that. Because I was. One by one, I created subfolders. Housing assistance, rent plus utilities, medical emergencies and travel funds, wedding contributions, gifts plus loans, messages of manipulation. Each screenshot got a caption. Each PDF a description. I wasn't just filing. I was framing a story, one they couldn't erase or talk around. At 3:55, I backed it all up to the flash drive, labeled it with a piece of masking tape. $33,000 Truth. I clicked log out and took a breath. My hands were steady now, cold but steady. As I packed up, Marcus returned with a post-it. "Here's our copier code, if you want to print any hard copies, for free." I thanked him, but I didn't need to print anything. Not yet. I had everything I needed backed up twice, once on the flash, once in the cloud. Receipts, dates, their own words. If they wanted to challenge me, I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd raise the folder. At 4:12, I stepped out onto Franklin Street, sun warm on my shoulders. Cars passed. Teenagers on bikes laughed loud and careless. But I was walking toward something steady, real. A story in my pocket, proof in my purse. And soon, a reckoning on the horizon. By 6:30 p.m., I was in Pastor Ruth's sunroom on Lakeside Avenue, the sky outside softening into dusk. The windows were cracked open, just enough to let in the breeze. The scent of lemon balm wafted in from the herb pots on her patio. Her living room lamp cast a gold hush over everything. Bernice sat on the floral love seat, reading glasses perched on her nose, flipping through my folder like she was preparing a case. Mr. Carter had just arrived with his own envelope, pressed and stamped, tucked beneath his arm like a shield. We weren't gossiping. We were gathering. Pastor Ruth poured tea for each of us, careful not to interrupt the silence. I passed out copies of the documents I'd printed that afternoon. Naomi emails, the lease PDF, Max's texts, screenshots of the GoFundMe. I watched their eyes take it all in. No one looked surprised. Pastor Ruth spoke first. "I knew something was wrong after I saw those wedding pictures. You weren't in them, and I knew you should have been." Mr. Carter nodded. "She's been funding that boy for years. I've seen it. Every transaction." Bernice flipped a page. "This is more than betrayal. This is targeted financial manipulation. They've been walking her toward a cliff." I pulled out the envelope I'd labeled Power of Patterns. Inside were my itemized ledgers and the bank cancellation receipts. I laid them in the center of the coffee table like we were planting seeds. "We're going to stop this," I said, "but not with yelling, not with threats, with truth. Witnessed truth." Pastor Ruth leaned forward, palms flat. "Then let it be done here first, in the company of those who know who you really are." Bernice reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're not alone, Renat. Not anymore." I let out a breath, I didn't realize I'd been holding for 3 years. They were quiet for a long time after that, reading, nodding, processing. Max's car drove by slowly, once around 7:10 p.m. I saw it through the open curtain, his old sedan creeping past the house like a ghost. He didn't stop, didn't knock, just hovered. I didn't flinch. Pastor Ruth walked over and closed the curtain. "You know what this is?" she asked softly. "What?" "This is you drawing a line, the kind they'll have to step over in front of witnesses." That night, I left her house with 3 copies of The Truth, a plan tucked under my arm, and allies who didn't need convincing. I wasn't a woman unraveling anymore. I was a woman preparing to testify, and I wasn't going to do it alone. The next morning, I arrived at the Forest Hill USPS branch at 9 o'clock sharp, letter in hand, certified mail, signature required. The envelope was thick, neatly sealed, addressed to Max and Naomi apartment on Carey Street. Inside, a formal cease contact notice, revocation of all financial permissions, and a notarized statement declaring that they were no longer to access, expect, or request support from me, monetary or otherwise. I had included the cancellation receipts, copies of bank statements, and the revised beneficiary documents. Everything stamped, dated, legal. Behind it all, a typed cover letter, Max and Naomi. This letter is not open for negotiation. It is not an invitation to explain, or soften, or spin. This is a boundary. All access to my finances is revoked. All assistance is ended. I am not confused. I am not angry. I am clear. You do not get to hurt me in secret and hold me in public. Please do not contact me. R. Richter. The postal clerk scanned the envelope, gave me a printout. Tracking's active. They'll need to sign for it. I nodded. That's the point. She raised an eyebrow. A lot of people don't bother with this much. I didn't used to, I said. Now I do. From there, I drove straight to Lock and Key off Midlothian. Had them rekey every door in my house. New hardware, new deadbolts, $146 total. They gave me a printed invoice, which I slid into the folder in my glove compartment. Naomi still had her old set. I'd made her a copy last year when she said she liked surprising me with visits. Not anymore. When I got home, I posted a note on the fridge. New locks changed. October 19th. No keys to be shared. I texted the building superintendent, Mr. Lyles, and let him know. My son and his wife no longer have permission to access this unit. Please deny entry if they ever try. He responded fast. Understood, Ms. Richter. I got you. Then I emailed Legal Aid of Virginia the documents I had sent. They'd reviewed my draft the day before. No loopholes. Everything airtight. I sat at the kitchen table afterward, tea steeping beside me, staring out at the dogwood tree in my backyard. Leaves turning red at the tips. I didn't feel guilt. I felt final. I was no longer waiting to be loved properly. I was protecting the part of me they had mistaken for endless. And the countdown had officially begun. They came in loud, like they always did. It was just past noon. Service had ended, and the fellowship hall buzzed with laughter and potato salad, and folding chairs squeaking against tile. Then the doors slammed open. Max and Naomi stormed in like they were performing for an audience. And in a way, they were. I was standing near the punch table with Deacon Janice and Brother Tyrone when I saw them. Naomi's heels clicked hard on the floor, her face tight and red. Max followed behind her, jaw clenched. "Mama!" Naomi barked, loud enough to stop conversations. "We need to talk, now!" I didn't move, just turned to face them, hands folded. I was ready. "You just cut us off?" she demanded. "After everything we've been through?" Heads turned. Sister Melody stopped mid-scoop of banana pudding. Pastor Ruth was just stepping out of the choir robbing room. She froze, then slowly walked toward us. Max stepped forward, eyes darting around. "Mom, please, this isn't the place." "Then why are you here?" I asked calmly. "Because you made it public the second you used my name without consent." Naomi pulled a paper from her purse and waved it like a flag. "You agreed to support us. We have documents. Look." She held up the lease. The same forged one I never signed. I didn't flinch. Pastor Ruth stepped in then, voice calm, but firm. This ends now. The room quieted completely. Naomi turned on her. You don't understand what she's doing. She's abandoning Max, her only son. Brother Tyrone stepped forward. You raised your voice, child, but she's standing still. I met Naomi's eyes and said, You forged my name. You accessed my credit. You used my kindness as leverage. She's lying, Naomi snapped. But Pastor Ruth reached for the lease in Naomi's hand, studied it. This signature's a copy, she said. Not original ink. No witness line filled. And I know Ms. Richter's handwriting. Gasps. Murmurs. Deacon Janice stepped beside me. She's not alone. Naomi's voice cracked. You don't know the pressure we've been under. You don't understand how hard it's been to build anything without help. I looked her dead in the eye. You had help. For 3 years. $33,000 of it. And you threw it away the moment I expected honesty. The silence was a hammer. Then Pastor Ruth said what I didn't need to. She's not the one who should be ashamed. Naomi's hand dropped. Max stared at the floor. They had wanted a scene. They got a reckoning. And I wasn't even done yet. I stepped up to the church podium with the folder in my hand and the mic already warm. The hall had quieted into the kind of hush you only get in holy places. Not fear, not awe, but something sharper. Attention. Max stood stiff near the doorway, arms crossed. Naomi sank into a folding chair, face pale. Pastor Ruth stood off to my right, her presence steady as the pulpit. I laid the folder flat on the podium and opened it slowly, deliberately. Inside were the sheets I'd printed from the library. Itemized lists, screenshots, statements, affidavits. I looked at the congregation. These people had watched Max grow up, sung at his baby dedication, brought casseroles when my husband passed. They deserved to know. My name is Renate Richter, I began, voice clear, and I have given freely to my son and his wife for 3 years, not because I was obligated, not because I owed them, but because I loved them. I paused. I pulled the first sheet from the folder. This is the ledger of what I've given since January 2022. I read each line aloud. Rent assistance, $500 monthly. Bridal contributions, $800. Medical copay, $800. Furniture, $1,200. Miscellaneous aid, groceries, gas, gifts, documented. Gasps whispered through the room as I continued. Total, $33,400. Verified by bank statements. Logged, receipted, witnessed. Max tried to speak. Pastor Ruth raised a hand without looking at him. Silence fell again. I continued, lifting the next page. This is a screenshot of a GoFundMe campaign Naomi created the day after their wedding, after they told people they were financially stable. It asks for more. Then another. This is the lease Naomi emailed me, asking me to co-sign under the pretense of a wedding gift. I never signed. Yet a lease surfaced with my forged signature, sent to a landlord, used to validate their housing. I laid that sheet down, the silence growing heavier. And this, I held up a notarized letter, is my revocation of all access, all funds, all implied obligations. Pastor Ruth stepped forward and rested her hand on the folder. She gave. They took. And now it ends. I looked down at Naomi. No smirk now, no performance. Just a woman crumbling in the space where entitlement had lived. Max wouldn't meet my eyes. I will not raise my voice, I said, but I will raise the truth. And I did. In front of God and the people and the quiet witnesses who had always known I wasn't lying, I laid it all out. And I didn't blink. The hall emptied slowly, like a tide pulling back from shore. No shouting, no brawl, just silence and whispers, the kind that stay with people long after the doors close. I stayed behind, seated now in the side office next to the sanctuary. Pastor Ruth had turned off the mic, but her hand still rested on the folder I'd placed in front of her. She hadn't said much since the reading, just listened, eyes steady. Now she looked at me. You did what most people don't have the strength to. I opened my purse and handed her the flash drive labeled $33,000 truth. Then 2 affidavits. One from Mr. Carter confirming the canceled transfers, and one from Bernice documenting the email headers and the altered lease file. I want these kept safe, I said. She nodded, rising slowly and unlocking the church safe tucked behind the office bookshelf. I watched her place the documents and the drive inside, then turn the key. Click. Then the knock came. The door creaked open and Naomi stood there, barefoot now, makeup streaked, clutching her purse like it could anchor her. Her voice was small. Please, Mama R, you have to understand. No, I said, standing. I don't. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move. I didn't reach for her. I didn't offer softness. I had given all of that already, in years and meals and checks and grace. And what had she given back? Pastor Ruth stepped forward, gently but firmly closing the office door in Naomi's face. You don't have to absorb that, she said to me. I nodded, hands still on the chair back. My legs felt rooted to the floor, not from weakness, but from grounding. I was planted, not shaken. In the hallway, Max's voice rose, then fell. I didn't strain to hear it. Whatever he had to say, it wasn't truth. Not anymore. Pastor Ruth sat down again. You know what happens next? I breathe, I said. I rest. I change my locks. I reclaim my peace, she smiled. Good. And if they try to rewrite the story, I've got the receipts. I finished. That night, I left the church with nothing in my hands. My folder stayed in the safe. The story was no longer just mine. It was recorded, witnessed, and protected. They could cry, they could spin, but the evidence was sealed. And so was my boundary. Back home, I laid everything out on the porch. Screwdriver, drill, pins. Took off my earrings, rolled up my sleeves. One by one, I replaced the locks. When I was done, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. Naomi. Her voice, tight and breathy. You'll regret this. I swear you're going to end up alone. I deleted it before it finished. Then I clicked over to my security app. The new cameras from Best Buy were already mounted, above the porch light and back stoop. Live feed. Secure. Motion alert on. I watched the screen. Nothing but birds and breeze. Exactly how I liked it. I made myself a cup of tea and stood by the window, watching the leaves toss gently outside. My house felt still, not empty. Mine. But I didn't feel afraid anymore, because now, if they came knocking, they'd find a door that didn't open for guilt or lies or shame. Only for truth. Only for people who understood what it meant to be given access and to honor it.